Hey everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Sandra Grant. I'm the owner of Outlaws Dies. You don't usually see my face very often, so this is kind of a little bit unusual, but I really wanted to give you guys a run through of the die machines and the different reasons why we recommend certain machines over others. And as basic as I can possibly get it, every machine is unique. Every machine is individual. And this doesn't go just for like the Sizzix or the Gemini or the Cuttlebug, any of those. It's each individual machine. And the reason why I say that is because any machine is designed with a certain calibration and a certain tolerance. And without getting too technical, what that basically means is your machines are going to vary slightly from one machine to the next. And that has to do with pressure, that has to do with ease of cutting, that has to do with a whole bunch of different things. There's tolerances. And because of those tolerances, your machines are going to react differently to different people's dies. There's no getting around it. What will cut really great on one machine may not cut so great on another machine. And we've found this over the many years of using dies and scrapbooking and now manufacturing and creating dies. And there's a couple of different variances and there's a couple of different reasons that affect how dies do and don't cut. And the most important thing that I want to talk about is intricate dies. And the reason why I want to talk about that is we do have an intricate die in our system. It is the Celtic Knots die. And to basically explain what I mean about intricate die, an intricate die is anything that has a lot of cutting surface. So what that means is there's a lot of little blades and a lot of little things that get cut out of this die. And why that comes into play is the more cutting surfaces that you have encountering your plate or your shim or whatever material it is that you're cutting down into affects how well the die cuts itself, because the pressure that those rollers have to give has to distribute evenly along that whole surface. And the best machines so far that I have seen that work very well with those intricate dies are the machines that have multiple rollers. And that's not something that you can actually tell from looking at a machine. I mean, you really have to kind of get in there, turn it, and really examine the machines to see what I'm talking about. But the only one that I absolutely know positively has the different roller system is Sizzix, and in their Big Shot Plus and in their Big Shot Pro. And the reason why that's important is that allows the pressure to distribute over a smaller space versus a longer space. Because if you know anything about physics and math and all that kind of fun stuff, if you have a straight piece and there's more over here and less over here, what's going to happen is it's going to skew slightly, and this is going to cut and this isn't. Whereas if you have a little roller, little roller, little roller, little roller, each of those rollers only has a 1 inch to 2 inch area that has that maneuverability. So that's where that comes into play. And like I said, I think the Sizzix is one of the only machines that I know of that has that. The Gemini might, but don't quote me on it. You'd have to actually ask their company. But because of that, it's going to cut dies that are more intricate better than any of the other machines will. There's also other things out there that help intricate dies, and 90% of the time what they recommend is called a metal shim or a metal plate to cut against. The metal shim and the metal plate is great for doing that, and it works. However, there's a problem with it, and you need to know the problem. The problem is that a metal shim, when you're cutting metal to metal, will dull the edge of the cutting surface of your dies. And if you look on Sizzix's website in very small disclaimers, it does say that on its metal shim. So what happens is every time you're using that with the metal plate, you're basically destroying your die. And we don't want you to lose your dies, especially when you're paying really good money for high quality dies. So we do not recommend that at all. What's going to affect your cutting, again, is that pressure. And there's a couple different ways that you can accommodate for that pressure. The first way is the type of cutting surface that you're cutting on. Okay, this is one of my Cuttlebug plates, and you can see it's very, very well loved. That's going to affect how it cuts too. The more intricate of a cut, the cleaner of a plate you want to cut with. The more cuts that are on this plate, the thinner this plate actually becomes, believe it or not, because you're pushing in the material into itself and it's spreading out this way. And if I could, if I could take a pair of calipers, I could show you that. But again, that's really technical. But what you want to make sure that you're doing is that you're cutting into a surface that's nice and clean and really level too, because I keep my plates, you can see this is very, very well used, and you can see that there's very, very little warping to this. I have not heated it, I have not put it in the oven, I haven't done any of those tips or tricks that anybody talks about. I rotate this way, that way, this way, and flip, and I do all of that. And I move my dies around, like you can see there's edge dies here, there's edge dies here, there's they're all over there. So you really have to do that. You have to move your dies around, and you have to do different things on your plates. This one, I will say, is about done, because I'm noticing that even on my normal cuts, it's really not cutting very, very well. The second thing is that when I'm cutting, 90% of the time, oops, let me grab that. I'm also using a top plate that stays clean. The reason why I use the top plate that stays clean is so that if you look on these dies and these plates, you'll see there's fibers that are embedded into this. And those fibers, if you put this as a top plate, are going to embed into your paper. And they're going to create textures, they're going to create little marks, and you really don't want that. You want a clean surface to push down on. So that's one thing. The second thing is there are companies now like scrapbook.com that are coming out with what they call their magic mat. And the magic mat's good, but it's not perfect. The reason why is because steel rule dies cut into acrylic. They will destroy these. Even though these are self-healing and everything else, steel rule will slice into this like there's no tomorrow. The low profile dies, which are like what we use, and the steel rules are the ones that has the wood and the plastic and stuff on that's really thick, that Sizzix usually does, AccuCuts did them, and so on and so forth. Anyways, sorry, squirrel. The low profile dies that we all pretty much have gone to using, again, they weren't designed to cut onto a soft surface. This is a soft surface. They were designed to cut on acrylic plates. And when you're cutting onto a harder surface, you're going to get a cleaner cut. Again, this is a great thing, and it will extend the longevity of your plates, and this will take a lot of beatings. I've seen people with these that have like millions of cuts on them. So they're really good, but again, they're not going to give you a very crisp cut. What they're going to give you kind of looks like a folded cut, because what it's doing is it's pressing the paper into a point where it splits. Okay, that's what these dies are designed to do. They don't actually cut like the steel rule dies do. They actually pressure so far to a point where it actually separates the fibers of the papers. And because of that, when you use one of the self-healing mats with those, you're going to get that beveled edge. You're going to really see that bend. And again, it's preference. Some people don't mind that. Some people do. I'm one of the ones that kind of do. So again, it's one of the things that I've done, I've tried, I've tested. It works for some, doesn't work that well for me. But it will work with our dies, and it will work, like I said, that you can see this is a 13-inch piece. So they do have the extended pieces. you'll notice this is a Cuttlebug plate. Cuttlebug did make a 12-inch system. They're very hard to find. I basically found mine. I found one set luckily on Amazon. The other set I managed to pick up at a scrapbooking yard sale. So I got very fortunate with that. But I do love my plates for my Cuttlebug. However, I have noticed that with our bigger dies, the Cuttlebug does not cut as cleanly as my Sizzix machine or my Gemini machine. I do own quite a few machines. I have the Sizzix, I have the Sizzix Plus, I have the Sizzix Pro, and then I also have the Gemini Junior, I have the Diamond Press Marquee, and I have the red Sizzix one from way back when, and then I also have the new little guy from We Are Memory Keepers. And I love that one for little cuts or little titles, but my go-to for any little piece is the Diamond Press Marquee. And the reason why the Diamond Press Marquee has impressed me more than any other die cutter out there is because of a couple things. For one, it's portable. It's very, very light, and it works really, really well, even when you're like me and have dropped it a couple times. But the better thing that I really, really do like about this system is that it works with the plastic folders. And the plastic folders are great because they're disposable once they get to the point of like total abuse and and use. You just toss them and you have some new ones that you replace them with. I have dozens and dozens of them because I love dies and I love this little machine. But I do like it because it is very easy to use, and again, it doesn't damage your dies, and even though it is a slightly softer surface than the acrylic plates, it gives a very beautiful, very crisp cut. And if you have small, intricate dies, it gives the absolute best cut you will ever get. Another feature that I do really like about the Diamond Press Marquee is that it's very easy to turn. Because of the folder is slightly more flexible, therefore it doesn't give you as much, what's the word? When you're trying to push something, and resistance, there we go. It doesn't give you as much resistance. So I really do like that about the machine. You can literally twist it and turn it with one finger. So that is my go-to of choice for all our little dies for our partner sets and accessory pieces. So that's my go-to for that. And again, the really, really small ones, if you want to use the little We Are Memory Keepers guy, he's perfect, because he's light, he can travel well and everything else. The only drawback to this one is, for some reason, there are some dies that don't like working with this one. And I don't know why. They have multiple plates, and I've tried multiple plates and multiple combinations and everything, but there's just a couple of dies that I have that just won't cut on it. So again, that's when I have to swap back to my Marquee. But it all depends on what I'm cutting and how big the piece is and what machine is more closely at hand than anything else, which is usually my Marquee. So again, just a bunch of knowledge and information, and not a lot of show and tell in that regard. But I really, really wanted to reiterate the different machines and the different choices. For the 12-inch dies, again, I probably, if I had to recommend any machine in correlation with our stuff, I would recommend Sizzix. And one of the other primary reasons why I would recommend Sizzix is, in the die industry, they're the ones that have been around forever. They've been making machines since the beginning. They're the ones that have the industrial machines. They're the ones that have the industrial dies. They know what they're doing. And, I know people love Crafter's Companion, and there's something to be said for that. But I'll also say that there's also too much of a good thing. And one of the things that I've found with my Gemini is our dies are very thin, low-profile dies. And, I mean, we only have literally, some of our dies are just a 1/8 inch strip of metal. So what we need to be careful of is we need to be careful of warpage. And what I mean by warpage is not the kind of warpage that bows, you know, because when you get a, when you're using these dies, I mean, no matter what, you're running it through 2 rollers. And if you run it through 2 rollers, it's going to bow no matter what you do. So when that's happening, as long as, like I said, as long as you're doing it one way and then doing it another way so that it's getting pressure from both of those sides, the die will stay fairly even. And, you know, it's, even if it does bow or you know, warp slightly in that bow direction, the die is still 100% usable. What we have found with the Gemini is that some of our dies are warping side to side, which means they're shifting this way along this axis, not up and down. They're shifting side to side. And that's really bad for steel. Because if you push this against, I guess you could say the grain, but you're pushing it against where the die has give. It's, you know, it has give this way. It's designed to work that way. So when you're pushing against in a direction that it's not really supposed to go, you are actually stressing the steel. And eventually that's going to cause the die to snap. And we do have a couple of dies in our system that when they were first designed, like Builder is the best example, if I can find it. Where's Builder? Here he is. Okay, so one of our first designs when we did this was Builder, and this is Builder. And you can see there's gaps in between the buildings. And we have re-engineered the die since, and this is the new Builder that goes in here. If you have this set, you are welcome to contact me to get this piece. I have these pieces extra. So what this die can actually flex up and down. It can actually bend. You can kind of see it bending now. And that's putting pressure onto this point. And that's not a good thing. So we had to re-engineer this one. We've also had to re-engineer strips and ribbons because we found that the pressure with the Gemini machine, it's going to break our dies. And it's also going to warp them and skew them when you're using them, and that's not a good thing. So again, if you have the Gemini Junior and you're having problems with this piece of Builder, you can contact us and get this one. If you have the original Builder and want this one anyways, please contact us to get a hold of this guy. It does have a different window configuration, and just in case, we did go ahead and mirror so that the buildings would be opposite each other, just to give you a little bit of variance there. So again, we're a small company. We've only been designing dies for a year now. We're a year old almost. So, you know, we're learning too. And we are taking those learning experiences back to you guys to let you know that, you know, there's do's and don'ts. And we really want to share our experiences and our knowledge and just, you know, really go forward into the die process, because we really do think that this is one of the ways that we're going to make your scrapbooking easier. And by putting the twist on the system the way that we have, I really hope that we're bringing a new facet into the die making industry, with continuity between dies and pieces. So again, we hope to see you soon. And I know this is a little bit long and heavy-winded, and that you've had to stare at me the whole time. So sorry about that. But I figured this was the best way to really talk about the die machines and the differences in what they'll do. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you guys for being a part of Outlaws Dies. And I really, really appreciate all your support. I know there's different companies that everybody can buy and purchase from, and there's different prices, and I know we're on that higher spectrum. However, I am very proud to say that that is a choice that I made to stay within the United States, to keep our dies local, and to keep manufacturing here as well. So very proud, very, very proud to have that with our company. So again, thank you guys for your support, and I look forward to creating more and more dies for you guys. And again, we're always open to suggestions. So if there is anything that's out there that you really would like to see in a die form, please let us know. And thanks for being a part of Outlaws.